Hey there, I hope you are doing great. In this video, we'll see how to create or how to implement a clear all timeout function. It is a common interview question asked in JavaScript interviews. This is often asked to test your understanding of timers and window and browser object model, etc. So if you know uh, JavaScript or the browser object model, the BOM as we say, provides us a set of timer function. One is set interval and another is set timeout. Now in set timeout, what happens is the set timeout function will be invoked after the given timeout or after the delay that is provided in the function. Now once the timer has run, or to stop the timer, they have also provided us another function which is called clearTimeout. Now this clearTimeout or clearInterval both takes ID of the timer as an input and clear that timer. So if you are running a set timeout, that set timeout will return an ID, and then you can use that ID and pass it to clear timeout to clear or to stop that timer. What we have to do is we have to implement another function which is clear all timeout, and this will be available on the window object. What it will do is it will stop all the running timer on the window or on the instance. So it won't take any input, rather than it will stop all the running objects. Now to implement this, we have to do certain modification in the original functions, because we have to store the ID of each timeout. Let's say a new timer has been set in the window or on the instance, so that the ID of that timer should be stored somewhere so that we can access it when we want to clear the timer. So let's start implementing this. Given the problem statement, the first thing we'll create is a storage where we can store all the timeouts. So timeout IDs. I have added it globally to the window object so that we can access it. So IDs. Now the second thing is we will be overriding the set timeout function itself, the original function. So what happens is in the original function it's returning the single ID, the timer ID of itself. But rather than what we want is every time a new set timeout function is created, we want its ID to be pushed to this array or the timeout IDs list. So what we'll do is we'll store the original set timeout, and now what we'll do is we'll override the existing one. Now what set timeout takes is a function and a delay in input. So we'll be doing the same. What it returns is the ID. So using the original set timeout, we'll run it over here. We'll pass our function and delay to it, and it will be returning us the ID. Now what you can do is store it in the timeout IDs, and after that we can return it. So if you want to clear the particular timer, this ID can be used to clear the particular timer using the clear timeout rather than clearing everything. So we are returning the ID. Now the final thing is implementing the clear timeout. Clear all timeout, sorry. A simple function. What it will do is it will run till there are elements or there are IDs in the timeouts, and it will clear them one by one. So we'll remove each ID, or we'll keep on removing IDs from the timeout IDs and keep clearing them. I think this is it. We have implemented a clear timeout function over here. Let me wrap this up. Add a command to original. Now let's try and run this. Let's create a timeout. Let me add it as a 1. This will run after 1 second. I have created 4 timers. Each will run after delay of 1 second. So one after another. Sorry. Save this, refresh, and see it's running 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we have run 4 timers. Let's try to clear this and see if it's working properly or not. So we'll run the clear timeout after that at the end. And it should not run any of the queue because clear timeout will run in the current queue while set timeout will run in the another queue. So it will clear all the timers before they are executed. So if you see, if I come back over here and refresh, none of the things will be printed in the console. Just to verify if the things are working properly or not, let's run this after a delay of 2.5 seconds inside a set timeout so that the first 2 intervals should be printed and the next 2 should not. Let me pass that over here, save it, and then refresh. So if you see 1 and 2 are printed, but 3 and 4 are not printed because the clear timeout clears all the ID, and so the 3 and 4 are not executed. So that's it. We have implemented the clear timeout function. Now the thing over here is we have implemented that in the window object. If you don't want to implement it in a window object, all you can do is you can wrap this inside a function or an object or a closure and return them and use that rather than overriding the existing functions. So for that, let me show you how we can do that. All we have to do is on timer wrapper, let's create a function. And wrap this around. Take everything inside that. Put it back. Now we don't need the original function because we won't be overriding it. Rather, what we'll do is we create a constant variables. Set timeout. Here it will run the original one. Same goes for the clearAllInterval. So at the end, we can return all these 3 things. Timeout RDs, my timeout, and clear out. You can destructure them by invoking the function. Timer wrapper, and then use them. So and clear timeout was there. Timeout IDs, I'm not using it. So, or let's see what is inside the timeout IDs. Let me print it at the end. So the same thing should happen. 1 and 2 should be printed. 3 and 4 should not be printed. Let's see if it's work fine or not. 1, 2. Things after that are not printing, and at the end we had printed the timeout IDs. So this was in the current queue. If you see, it is empty because we are passing the object as a reference. So everything from it is cleared. Same. What happens if I print it at the top? I'm not sure what will happen. So here, as you can see, initially the value was present, but after running, it got cleared. That's how things are working. Thank you so much. I hope you have learned something new.